Now, with Neymar returning to Santos, his boyhood club, which is an iconic transfer, an iconic return, considering how big of a player Neymar is and how his career's gone, I decided I want to look back and speak on what are my top five most memorable, iconic Premier League returns. And bear in mind, there are a lot across Europe. You know, you have, I know Dortmund have had a few with Hummels and Gertz, or even like Kagawa. Di Maria recently returned back to Benfica. What else? There's AC Milan have had a couple of returns. Kaká, Ibrahimovic. There are loads across Europe, but I want to just focus on the Premier League. What are my top five most iconic Premier League returns? Now, also bear in mind, there are a lot that I didn't watch. So I feel like if I didn't watch it, I can't really speak on what it meant. I can look at the stats and look at, the highlights and etc. But I don't know what it really meant to that club, especially like the clubs that I don't even, like smaller clubs that I don't have a connection to those clubs. So I don't really know. I don't speak to fans who support that club, so I don't really know what it meant to them. These are just mine, the ones that I researched. So let me know in the comments, any that I missed off. What are your top five most memorable Premier League returns? Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and let's get into this video. So I've got one honourable mention that I couldn't really squeeze him into this conversation or into my top five, but it is Gareth Bale returning back to Tottenham Hotspur. Now, the reason why I couldn't fit him into my top five is because, one, when he came back, it kind of just felt like it didn't feel like he was coming back to do anything. It kind of just felt like he was coming back because it was just in his best interest to leave Real Madrid at that moment in time. He came back on a loan, a season-long loan. And to be fair, when he came back, he was actually playing decent, like, in terms of he wasn't playing a lot. He wasn't like, playing every single game, but he was scoring. I think he got a hat-trick even when he came back. So he was doing things when he came back to the Premier League, but it didn't feel like he was coming to make a huge impact, and considering, the level that Bale is, in my opinion, Bale is like an all-time legend, like great. I'm talking about in world football, not the Premier League. I'm talking about in European world football, he is a legend. 5 Champions Leagues, iconic goals. The one where he ran past, was it Bartra and against Barcelona in a Copa del Rey, was it a Copa something final? I don't know what they call it. The Champions League overhead kicks, iconic legend, Gareth Bale. But his return kind of felt a little bit underwhelming in my opinion. But nonetheless, what a return. Considering what he was doing at Tottenham before he went to Real Madrid, he was tearing up the Premier League. If he stayed in the Premier League, I'm a United fan. So United fans, we always feel like we should just have the best players. So I always felt like we should have Bale. Like Bale should be a United player. It never happened. I heard Patrice Evra talk about it actually, saying that Bale was actually supposed to come back, to United. I don't know what happened, but yeah, his first stint at Tottenham was incredible. And it's a pity that it was at Tottenham because he couldn't end up winning anything, but it was still incredible. Went to Real Madrid, did amazing things, and he came back, scored quite a few goals. A little bit underwhelming, but nonetheless, great return. But that's my honourable mention. So at number 5, I have Wayne Rooney. Now look, I've got a little bit of stats here. Wayne Rooney at 16 was probably the greatest talent we'd seen in the Premier League. He was probably the greatest 16-year-old or the best 16-year-old that the Premier League had ever seen. He was this just aggressive, young, hungry, talented, super talented player who kind of just broke into the scene. I don't think there's been another 16-year-old in the Premier League that has broke onto the scene like that. He kind of just came with ultimate just fearlessness. Like he was like, I don't care how old the competition is, I'm Wayne Rooney. That's what it felt like. It felt like he just, in his head, he just kept on saying, I'm Wayne Rooney. Like, I'm better than everyone else here. That's kind of the energy it came with. And obviously, like I said before, in the Bale one, United, we just go for the best players. He was the best 16-year-old, arguably in the world, maybe at the time. I don't know, actually. He might not have been. But super, super talented 16-year-old. And United came and we snatched him up in time. We got him when we needed to. And obviously, we all know what he did at United. In my opinion, he is the greatest Premier League player of all time. I don't care what you guys say about, the other guys, Wayne Rooney, if we take everything into account, his impact in the Premier League, he was a face of the Premier League for a very long time. The goals, assists, the stats are there, but not only the stats, but ability-wise, he's arguably the most versatile, most complete footballer we've probably seen in the Premier League. And the trophies kind of just resemble it anyway. 5 Premier Leagues, Champions Leagues, Player of the Years, etc. Rooney is the greatest Premier League player of all time, and he did that at United. So for him to go back and return to Everton, his boyhood club, where he was the most, like I said, probably the best 16-year-old that anyone's ever seen, it meant a lot. It felt like a huge moment. And it wasn't like he just went and he just filled up the spaces and he just jogged around. And no, he made an impact. Stats-wise, 31 matches, 10 goals. He scored like one in every 3 games. That is good stats. For someone who's coming back in the later years, he's not coming to be their main player, their main goal scorer, but he scored, 10 goals in 31 games. I think that's decent. I mean, look at Højlund. Let me not get into United right now. Yeah, let me not get into United. I'm going to go off if I start talking about United. But yeah, incredible return. Coming in at number 4. Now, the reason why I've got this guy at number 4 is because I just feel like this return was just, in the moment, it felt huge. And the player that I'm talking about is Paul Pogba. Now, Pogba's return was obviously huge because in terms of talent-wise, and I always say this, and people hate it when I say this because I know a lot of people just don't like Pogba. But in terms of talent-wise, Pogba's one of the best players that we've seen in the Premier League. And I know that's like what? How could you say that? Pogba, he's inconsistent, he's got attitude problems. I don't care about none of that. That's all irrelevant. I'm not even speaking about that anyway. I'm talking about straight up just talent, like ability. Pogba was insane. I could say he still is, but I don't know what he's like right now. Let's be honest. None of us know what Pogba's like right now. I know he wants to return to football and arrive, and I'm hearing rumours that he's coming back to United again, which is crazy. I highly doubt it's going to happen. But before he left United, and he was obviously in the youth team, there was that iconic picture of him, Lingard, and Ravel Morrison winning the Youth Cup, one of the best youth teams that we've seen in the Premier League. Talent-wise, he was incredible. And I arguably feel like him leaving in the first place was one of United's biggest mistakes. I mean, we've seen loads of academy players leave United, especially in recent years. Elanga, Angel Gomez, Alvaro Fernandez, Greenwood. For whatever reason these guys have left, they've left in it. Some of them probably should have left. Who else has left? There's been a few. But I feel like Pogba is the one academy player which he should have never gone. He should have never gone. For how good he is or was, he should have never left. But in all fairness, he went and he progressed like crazy. He was able to showcase his talent on a big stage. He played next to incredible players like Pirlo, etc. And he was able to just become his own player. Build up his name and build up his brand and just become this figure in football. I think he won a Golden Boy as well whilst he was out there. Now, because of all of that, it made his return so iconic. Now, bear in mind as well, United at that point was in the mud. In fact, since Fergie left, we've been in the mud. Let's be real. We've been in the mud for about 12 years. It's an understatement to even say we've been in the mud. But at that moment in time anyway, with Mourinho in, we needed something. And the United kind of method to getting back was just sign a big player and hope for the best. We did that so many times. We signed Di Maria, we signed Sanchez, we signed Memphis Depay, we signed Pogba, we signed Ibrahimovic, we signed a whole bunch of big players just to hope for the best. We carried on doing that even after that. Sancho, Ronaldo, we kept on doing it. But Pogba was kind of the one that stood out for me, that he was like he's going to change things at United. That's what it felt like. Now, going into what actually happened, obviously, yeah, it did not end that way. But actually, bear in mind, his first couple of seasons, I don't think were that bad. We did win a Europa League. In fact, there was one season where he was just our best player, like all around. I think he got the most goals, the most assists, or the most GA in general, most tackles and all that kind of stuff. He was just all around just our best player. But it went very much downhill from there. It went very much downhill, unfortunately. But I just feel like as a return, I remember the Stormzy video, where he's dancing in the room, and like it just felt so big. It felt like something has to come of this. And like I said, unfortunately, it didn't. But I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. We can talk about Pogba in a whole nother video. Let me know you want me to do like a full Pogba debrief on how everything happened. But yeah, I feel like that was, as a return, that was huge. Now at number 3, this player, similar to Bale, what he did before he came back was huge. But the reason why I couldn't put him in the top 2 places is because when he did come back, I just feel like he didn't have that much of an impact. It kind of felt like a thank you, and that player is Thierry Henry. Now, like I said, his first stint at Arsenal, you could, not even you could, a lot of people would say that is the greatest Premier League player they've ever seen. A lot of people would say that. Probably most people would say that. Me being a United fan, I wouldn't say that. Me just, using a bit of logic, I wouldn't say that. But I can understand why people do have that stance on Thierry Henry or his first stint at Arsenal. Now, because of that, and because of where Arsenal ended up going after, he ended up leaving, etc., his returns felt big. It felt like, you know what, we're not the same Arsenal that we used to be. Thierry Henry kind of just brought a little bit more life into the club when he returned. I think it was in 2012 that he came back. No, the reason why I say it was more like a thank you was because he didn't do anything. I think he played 4 games. He scored 1 goal. It didn't feel like he's coming back to make an impact. He was nowhere near in his prime. He was playing for an MLS club. He came on a loan, season-long loan. Obviously, Wenger was still there, so it felt like a nice little, like, hi, how are you doing? Do you remember me? Like, you know what I mean? That's what it kind of felt like. It didn't feel like he was coming back to do anything. So that's why I've not got him that high up. I've got him at 3rd, which is still pretty high. But I just remember what it meant to Arsenal fans. That's probably the highlight of their season, Thierry Henry. Or not even their season, but just that period of time. That was probably one of the most iconic things or the most memorable things for them because of who he was. And especially the goal. I remember the goal. But he kind of slotted it in and he kind of ran off to the left. And I can only imagine what it felt like in the stadium at the Emirates to see Thierry Henry score a goal. That must have felt like, wow, like goosebumps, you know what I mean? So that it has to go high up for that reason, because I know what it meant to Arsenal fans from just speaking to them at that period of time. It meant a lot to them, and Thierry Henry, just in the Premier League in general, him coming back, it means a lot, just in footballing reasons. So yeah, that's my top. That is my 3rd most iconic, most memorable Premier League return. Now coming in at number 2, it is the big game player himself, Didier Drogba. Now the reason why he's at number 2 is I feel like his second stint at Chelsea, because he actually went on to win. Like, he went back to Chelsea and won, and he went back to his former manager and everything. I feel like it was bigger. It meant more. It was like you watched your old player, your probably one of the most iconic Chelsea players of all time. Not probably, he is one of the most iconic Chelsea players of all time. Come back to his old club and win. Like, to win. Like, there's not many players that can say they went back to their old club and won. Especially the size of the club as well. It's not like he's going back to, where did he play before? He played at, was it Monaco? Was it Monaco? No, it wasn't Monaco. One of them French teams, I can't remember. But yeah, he came back and he actually won. It meant a lot, to Chelsea fans. Now, his first stint at Chelsea, he had 226 games, 100 goals. Now, Drogba at Chelsea, his first, time, as he was one of the most dominant players. I spoke about this in one of my other videos. He was one of the most feared players in the Premier League. And it wasn't necessarily because of how many goals he scored. It's just because of how much of a problem he was on the pitch. He didn't need to score to be the best player. He didn't need to score to be the most problematic player, to be the most feared player. He didn't need to score to do that. And he was a striker. You'd fit a midfielder or one of the wingers would have that kind of impact. But Pogba as a striker didn't need to score to be the best player on the pitch. Facts. He was just that good and that dominant and technically just out of this world, He was just a problem for every defender. He was given centre backs sleepless nights before the game because of how good he was. Like I said, 226 matches, 100 goals. Now, he came back and he had 28 matches and only 4 goals. But if you just remember, I think it was in 2014, 2015. He came back when obviously Mourinho came back to Chelsea. And you know Mourinho, he loves his players. You know, if he can bring somebody back and if he can play with a player that he's already played with, he will do it. He's done it multiple times. But yeah, just seeing Drogba go back to Chelsea and win, that just felt incredible. Now, bear in mind, he didn't leave for that long. You know, I think he left Chelsea in 2012. He came back in around 2014, so it wasn't like he was gone for that long. But the fact that he did leave and come back and was successful, I feel like that's just incredible. I feel like that's what every player, when they return back to their home club, that's what they want. They want to go back and they want to bring something back. A bit like LeBron James. You know, I might even do one for NBA. You know, a lot of you guys probably don't know that I'm a huge NBA fan. I haven't been posting a lot of basketball content on this channel recently. If you do want to see that, let me know. But it is a bit like LeBron James going back to the Cavs. Now at number one, the most iconic return in the Premier League ever has to be Cristiano Ronaldo. It has to be. And I'm not even just saying that as a United fan. I feel like everyone can just admit when he returned, oh my gosh, goosebumps. I was doing a podcast when it got announced. I might even put a clip that we posted a clip on the obviously the M1 podcast. If you don't know, I have a podcast called M1 Podcast. But at the time, we were literally live when I think Fabrizio announced it, and we were like, "What?" Because there was the whole conversation about him going City, and it just felt like there's no way. Like there's no way like he's gonna go City. There's no way like it might probably have been true, you know, because Ronaldo he wants to win, you know, and City were winning at the time, but when it was like, no, he's coming to United, what? That feeling, I'm telling you now, there was no better feeling. There was no better feeling hearing that Ronaldo was coming back to United. That might be the most iconic thing to have happened in the Premier League. Like maybe that's a big take or controversial take, but Ronaldo returning to United is bigger than anything City's ever done, anything Chelsea's ever done, anything Arsenal's ever done, anything Liverpool's ever done. That moment, maybe Liverpool winning the Champions League, I can say, you know what, that game itself is huge. But I feel like Ronaldo returning was just such a huge moment for football. Considering what he did in the Premier League this first time round, look, I've had debates about it. I had a debate recently about this. Ronaldo's first stint at United, because of what he went on to do at Real Madrid, people downplay it. And I feel like it's not fair to downplay it because that's a Hall of Fame career that he had at United. If he was to retire in 2009, people would respect what he did at United even more, like 100 times more. But it's because he went on to do greater things. People say, oh, but he wasn't even at his best. He wasn't even at his best. Yeah, that's because his best was 100 times better than everybody else. You know what I mean? Like, Ronaldo's best is like up here. His second best is here. And everybody else is also here. So Ronaldo at his second best, which you could say was at United, even though arguably, you know, that season or that couple seasons, his last couple seasons at United was up here anyway. But let's just say Ronaldo at his second best at United is here. Everybody else is still here as well. When I say everybody else, I'm talking about all the other legends, all the other Premier League greats. They all just about reached this point. So forget about what he went on to do. His second best is the same level as everybody else's. You know what I'm trying to say? So his first stint at United was incredible. Incredible. You can't even compare. You can't like, no other Premier League players hit that peak. They haven't. You could talk about your Thierry Henrys, you could talk about your Salahs, you could talk about your Rooney. I love Rooney, you know what I'm saying? But you could talk about your Rooneys and your Hazards and Agueros and whoever else. None of them hit the height, the peak that Ronaldo hit at Manchester United. So when he returned, considering where we was at, we were in the mud. We've been in the mud at that point. You know, we needed like a savior. We tried with Pogba to be our savior. We tried with Sanchez. We tried with Di Maria. We tried with Delat. We've tried with Ibrahimovic. We tried with multiple managers. We needed someone to come back and just take us over the line. And it felt like at the time, it could only be Ronaldo. And he didn't come back in the mud. He didn't come back like when Thierry Henry came back, or when Gareth Bale came back, or when Drogba came back. No, he came back pretty much still in his prime. He was breaking records at Juventus. You know, so he came back in a good place. It felt like it was just meant to be. And that first game against Newcastle at home, Peter Drury. I might even have to put that in. I might even have to put that clip in this video. That return, that game, him scoring 2 goals, him hitting the shoe, like, there hasn't been a more iconic moment in the Premier League. I'm sorry, there hasn't. There hasn't been a moment in the Premier League. I don't care. You can talk about your Guerrero and all that kind of stuff. No. Ronaldo returning to the Premier League is the best thing, the most iconic, the most memorable thing to have ever happened in this game, in this football game that we have in this country, this English country, this Premier League. Nothing beats Ronaldo's return. And that's why it's number 1. That's why it's number 1. So, yeah, I mean, he came back, he bagged a whole load of goals. I think he scored 18 goals in the league, 18 or 19 goals in the league. All competitions, it was like 23 goals. You know, he was scoring multiple match winners. He even scored a hat-trick. United don't have a player right now that can score a hat-trick. Well, we do actually, Ahmad. That's a lie. I take that back. We have Ahmad Diallo. But we don't have many players. United don't have many players in the team right now. Other than Amad Diallo, we don't have any players that can score a hat-trick. Ronaldo came back and was bagging a hat-trick, was saving us, like I said, Champions League. You know, it's unfortunate that he didn't win a trophy with us. I wish Ronaldo could have actually brought us to a trophy, but, you know, I mean, looking back now, it was impossible. You know, we were never going to get to that point. But, wow, what a return. I feel like I've just used a lot of energy, you know, talking about that. But yeah, incredible. Let me know, like I said, let me know in the comments your favourite returns from players. And yeah, I'm going to see you in the next video.